Hello and welcome to this Divine Partnership Coaching video. I'm kind of laughing. I'm sitting in my garage office and the light coming in from outside and the light in the ceiling almost makes me feel like I have some sort of angelic presence, but also with the cigarette smoking, it's like angel and the devil in there. Which fits with what this video is going to be about, which seems to be a theme that's coming up, so I thought it would be good to include it for those that find themselves either on the twin flame journey or just a healing journey in general. And it's talking about how we learn to gaslight ourselves. I know a lot of people talk about recognizing gaslighting from others, but there isn't a lot of talk about how we end up doing that to ourselves, especially as a result of being gaslit by others. And it can be something, it can start out as simply as a loving adult telling their child or a child that they care about that everything is okay and nothing is wrong when there are clearly things that are not copacetic, just to say the least. And we do that because we care about them. We don't want them to worry. We don't want them to. We are hoping for the best in the first place. I mean, I've done it to my kids too, until I thought about it. And I know that one of the big things for me, thinking back, is that, I would have appreciated knowing what really was happening because I could sense it and I could feel it, but it wasn't even really taught a lot to think of kids as capable of understanding complex adult situations or emotions or things like that. And oftentimes when we are saying something like that, we are already really, really stressed out. And it's just kind of a natural response to say, oh, no, 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 everything is fine. But there in and of itself is the example of both. It's the example of how we got gaslit. We got told that nothing was happening or everything was okay when something was happening or was not okay. And then in the adult role, we gaslight ourselves into thinking that, one, everything will be okay if we tell ourselves that everything will be okay, which is kind of a paradox because that is true in many ways, especially if you follow manifestation and you look at the way that the universe works. But it is also not true if where our thoughts are is not feeling like it's going to get better. But then, we often tend to do that, and this can. I want to say that I don't think this is attached to any specific gender. Both sides tend to do it. I think more so with feminine, those who identify more feminine, we tend to feel the feelings, but we push them away, or we try to dive into different social aspects to try to kind of take up the space of the anxiety of what's going on, whereas those who identify as more masculine tend to put it into work or things that typically fit in with more male type roles, and within that not feel the feelings. And so we kind of got both sides. Like there's repression on both sides, but I think more feminine side, we feel those feelings, but they build up in us. And then, when you're interacting with a masculine figure who is literally not thinking those things and pushing them away, then the two come together and create a nice little volcano that eventually goes, right? But I think it's really important, especially when you're feeling triggered, like you feel like somebody is withholding from you or pretending like everything is okay when it's really not, to look at, well, what is it that is meant for you to learn in that, like to get away from the focus on the actual thing that is happening right then and there without going into gaslighting yourself, but to look at what can you learn from that, and where, where when you were growing up did that happen enough times that it is triggering now, or that you are attracting people who are bringing that up for you, things of that nature. And to be honest, the best thing I can think to do right now is not gaslight myself or anyone else into pretending that I have all the answers, that I know exactly what to do in these situations. But it's definitely a theme of something that's coming up for me and the collective around me and the folks that I'm grateful to be coaching right now. And The best thing I can say is just to look at it. Sometimes there's not a thing that you're supposed to do per se, and sometimes just knowing about what's happening or knowing what's happening, being able to recognize where you do things like that to yourself is power enough in its own. The recognition of it is powerful enough in its own. And with currently, I said this video is timeless, but currently we are on Lionsgate 8/8/2020, and so recognition and is it's a big theme right now. And so your homework for this video is to make a list of all the ways that when something goes wrong or right, that you gaslight yourself, because it can go either way. Maybe something's going wrong and you get into self-defeating thoughts about how you're not worthy of better attention, or like if somebody else is hiding something from you or lying to you or not being not being in their divinity, and if you take it to a place of like, well, they're just so immature, or they're doing this to me on purpose, or I'm not worthy of this, or I can't say anything about this because A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Look at those things, and then look at when you're doing something that is not in your divinity. How do you excuse yourself, or how do you blame others? Or if you don't, like, or maybe you blame yourself. Do you beat up on yourself when it gets to that point? Like, what do you do to silence yourself from speaking up, or to stop yourself from going towards something that is in alignment with your self-worth, especially when you're feeling triggered by others that maybe you want their attention? Maybe it's your divine femme or your divine masculine. Like, how do you put on that happy face and pretend that everything is okay when it's not? And then look around when you see others doing that to you, and how do you either excuse them or blow it out of proportion? Kind of a splitting thing. Like, recognize where you put some people on pedestals and convince yourself that everything is all right until it's not all right, and then completely fall from grace in that way and see them as the devil instead of the angel, when really we're all in the middle. I mean, look at this light and the smoke coming in, where we all have good and bad contrast, and that's part of the amazing thing of the human experience. All right, if anybody has any specific feedback or questions, please feel free to leave them in the description box below.